Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meateater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meateater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meateater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meateater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
My name is Clay Newcomb, and I'm the host of the Bear Hunting Magazine podcast. I'll also be your host into the world of hunting the icon of North American wilderness, the bear. We'll talk about tactics, gear, conservation, but we'll also bring you into some of the wildest country on the planet chasing bear. This week, Kolby and I dial it back a notch and bring up some pretty relevant topics that are relevant to the Bear Hunting Magazine podcast, Meateater, my association with Meateater, and magazines and the current state of our hunting. We talk about a bunch of stuff, but this is definitely a different style of podcast that I think there's some relevant information. I mean, if you're a Bear Hunting Magazine podcast listener, you're going to want to check this out. And that's why you're here, because you're checking it out. Hey, just yesterday, it's the Arkansas modern gun season, but I was carrying my CVA Acura mountain rifle for several reasons, because of its lightness, and I was getting back in there a long ways and didn't want to carry a heavy gun. And in these tight quarters in the mountains where I'm hunting, you're not going to get two shots at an animal anyway, so might as well be carrying a muzzleloader. So I carried my CVA Acura mountain rifle. Kolby, I haven't even told you this. I fell in the creek on the way out in the dark.
Oh, yeah.
I was crossing the creek, fell in the creek, went down to my knees. The muzzleloader went totally underwater.
Oh, man.
The butt of the muzzleloader, including the breech plug, went totally underwater.
Oh, okay.
So you see where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
I pull the muzzleloader out of the water, and I'm like, if I was hunting, it was dark now.
Yeah.
But would this gun fire? So when I went back to the truck, I wanted to see if it would shoot.
Yeah.
I've actually videoed this.
Okay.
And the breech plug was underwater for about 2 seconds, which, historically muzzleloaders would be, if they get wet, they wouldn't shoot,
Yeah.
Boom.
Good
Fired.
to go.
Gun fired.
Yeah.
And, that breech plug that you can unscrew with your hand on that CVA Acura Mountain, all CVA muzzleloaders, was tight enough that no water got on that powder.
That's
shot.
awesome.
So, anyway, that's my, real life, plug for CVA muzzleloaders.
Yeah.
The breakover action, love them. The lightweight, I enjoyed carrying that gun. And, it's a 200-yard gun to me, and I've only shot it a couple of times,
Yeah.
And didn't kill a deer. But CVA, man, check them out. They've got a great warranty on all their guns and a very full line of all types of muzzleloaders.
Yep.
It is, man, it's killing me, Kolby, that I haven't coon hunted very much this fall.
Yeah.
Killing me.
Yeah.
It's time.
Yeah.
And W Hunting Supply, man, I've got a new Garmin Alpha 200i from W that I'm about to get cranked up because we're about to start coon hunting. I pretty much just can't combine coon hunting and deer hunting very well. Yeah. In a lot of the places I hunt, I can't coon hunt there. But point being, it's time for guys to start thinking about, well, not thinking about it, they're doing it.
Yeah. Releasing those hounds.
Releasing the hounds, releasing the squirrel dogs, releasing the border collie out of your backyard. Wait a minute. Now, sporting dogs, pet dogs, any kind of dogs you got. I know people that listen to this podcast have dogs. Go support Buddy Woodbury and W Hunting Supply. These guys aren't just business owners. They're fighting the good fight for hounds, for sporting dogs, and they've got an incredible company, incredible customer service. Anything you ever need for dogs, garment supplies, anything.
Yep.
Our friends, our buddies, W Hunting Supply, right?
Yep. Local for you.
Yeah, man. And our good friends at the Western Bear Foundation. Check them out. They're doing a lot of great stuff in the West for black bears. They're a hunting conservation organization, but they're interacting with a lot of the issues out there related to the delisting of the Yellowstone grizzly. So there's a lot of anti-hunting activity out there. And Western Bear, Joe Condelis, those guys, they're great spokesmen for us.
Yeah.
And as we talk about guarding the gate, this may not seem relevant. You may not live in Wyoming and Montana and Idaho, and you may not have to worry about grizzly bears. But what's happening out there is going to affect you at some point in Pennsylvania and Arkansas and Kentucky and New Mexico. It's like these fundamental issues of predator hunting are going to be key for the future of the North American hunting model being sustained. So that's why guys like the Western Bear Foundation are so significant. So go join their organization. Check them out. Lastly, Northwoods Bear Products. Man, bear baiting is pretty much over. I mean, it's like mid-November.
Yeah.
But spring is coming up, and there's no better bear scent products than Northwoods. There's just not. And so Northwoods Bear Products, they're great guys, great friends of ours, and have an incredible full line of all kinds of commercial scents. You hear me talk about it all the time. What do I talk about?
Gold Rush.
Gold Rush. Northwoods Gold Rush. If you open it up in your truck will smell like that for 3 years. We know that.
Yeah, they should make a Gold Rush candle.
A Gold Rush candle?
Yeah. It's a very...
Just for your house?
Yeah. Just manly candle, like dial it back.
Butterscotch is not exactly manly, Kolby.
Is that butterscotch?
Butterscotch.
It's so strong it overwhelms you.
It's kind of a butter. It's kind of odd that it attracts bears like it does, but oh man, does it ever.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, Northwoods candle from Kolby.
Butterscotch. Hey, I would try it.
Hey, check out our buddies at Northwoods, and thanks for listening to our podcast, guys. We really appreciate it. There's some changes coming in the future that are going to be awesome, and you'll learn a little bit about it on this podcast. We are at the Bear Hunting Magazine Global Headquarters. I've got here with me Kolby the Bear Tech Morehead. How are you doing, Kolby?
Fantastic.
All right. Well, this is going to be a little bit different of a podcast for many reasons. Many reasons. We've got a few things we need to address directly.
Yep.
And those very things are the things that are kind of affecting our current podcasts, and these are all like these are good things.
Yeah.
Good things. But then we're going to talk a little bit about our hunting season, which man, I've had a tough one so far.
Yeah.
But hey, the monkey on the table.
Monkey on the table.
The monkey on the table.
Where did that saying come from?
I don't know. Probably Brent Reeves.
That sounds like a Reeves thing.
Yeah. No. Hey, I work for Meateater.
Yeah.
Have you heard about that?
Are you talking to me or are you talking to somebody else?
I'm talking to you.
Of course.
I wanted to officially on the podcast talk about this because this is public knowledge. Like 3 weeks ago, probably, Meateater came out with a video, and you guys could go watch it if you hadn't seen it. It's on Instagram and on Facebook.
It's legit.
Of introducing me as the newest team member of Meateater.
Mm-hmm. In Mountain Man style.
Yeah, so there's like a little 2-minute video that's pretty fun that you could go back and check out. But I thought it would be valuable to our listeners to hear me talk about this situation.
Yeah.
And kind of tell them about the structure, the way things work. So the good news is that Bear Hunting Magazine is going to stay the same and even be better.
Yeah.
Bear Hunting Magazine, I still own, operate, you manage Bear Hunting Magazine.
Yeah.
So like the actual print magazine is not going to change at all. Like you'll still see me in there, still see me writing, still see just like
editorials and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So Bear Hunting Magazine is still intact. And, man, we've been in print for 20 years. This is our 20th year of production. Yeah. And, maybe it'd be kind of cool to go into a little bit of history about Bear Hunting Magazine for people that hadn't been following along. We've got some subscribers that have been subscribing since day one. They have 20 years of magazines.
Yeah.
But Bear Hunting Magazine was, what were we going to say?
I was going to say that's on the phone when they call in, they're like, I've got every single one. I don't want to miss one. So
yeah, and they get real cranky when the post office loses their magazine.
Yeah. So they call real quick if they don't get it on time. It's like, am I missing out on my subscription or something?
Listen to this, Kolby. I just, like, right when we got on this podcast, there's one here that you're going to have to deal with. He said, I was wondering why I haven't received my November-December issue. I look forward every other month receiving your great publication for the past 10-plus years.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, he didn't get his magazine.
Yeah, I think those are the people that see the value in having a full library.
Yeah. Well, so Bear Hunting Magazine was started by a friend of mine, a guy named Jeff Folsom. Jeff and his wife ran the magazine for 14 years. And in 2013, I acquired the magazine. And so I've been running it since 2013. So now going on 7 years.
Yeah.
June of 2021 will be 8 years. And Bear Hunting Magazine is the only print, fully dedicated bear hunting magazine in the world. Yeah. There's been a few kind of come and go, not necessarily print magazines, but there was an online magazine. But, I mean, we're the only dedicated bear publication in the world. Just for interest's sake, just so people can kind of understand the print world and kind of what's happened inside of media. So about 2000, probably about the time that this business was started, print was really at its peak. Yeah. I mean, think about like the 1990s. Let's just go back to the 1990s. If you wanted to consume outdoor media, you would have pretty much had two options, which would have been television. That was the start of kind of like outdoor television. Yeah. Which was big, which became big. And VHS tapes. When I say television, I mean just like watching hunting on your TV. Yeah. Whether you bought VHS tapes. Did your dad buy VHS hunting tapes?
Oh, yeah.
What, do you remember any of the names?
Man, I wore out. Okay, so this isn't a legit hunting one, but I wore out Jim Varney, the Misadventures of Bubba, whenever I was a kid.
Oh, really? See, I don't even know who that is.
We watched like TK and Mike. No, like, Buckmasters and like all that stuff, the Real Tree guys and
Primetime Bucks.
Yeah, that sounds like we watched so many. I had no idea like what they were called, but every once in a while I go back at home and I'll see one. I'm like, oh, I remember that one.
It brings back memories.
Yeah.
Man, I've still got, like in the office here, I've still got a bunch of my DVDs. Now, I got rid of the VHS tapes because they were just like irrelevant. I don't even have a VHS player anymore, VCR. Yeah. But, man, there was a time when that was like a main way to consume outdoor media was through the television or, number two, magazines. Yeah. Like, man, I grew up on magazines, and most people did if they were consuming media before, let's say, 2005. Like, just, so like people that are like in their 20s probably weren't as focused on magazines. But I'm still amazed at how much magazines have infused the culture. Like, for instance, I was at the dentist the other day, and he was talking about teeth whitening, and he was like, now, if you were going to be on the cover of a magazine, we would do this. And it, like, in his mind, like, he was a little bit older guy. Yeah. Like, the pinnacle of, like, someone that would need like really white teeth and a good smile would be someone that was on the cover of a magazine.
Yeah, very visible and put together.
Well, but my point is that like still people say, oh man, you're gonna put that in a magazine, or
Yeah.
like magazine is still like this iconic
Prestige.
place of prestige in just about anything. The cover of a magazine cover.
Yeah.
Okay, so turns out the internet came along, Kolby.
Mm-hmm.
And the internet, I remember, I graduated high school in 1998.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember as a senior them having us set up email addresses. And I remember the words coming out of one of my teachers' mouths about the World Wide Web.
Mm-hmm.
WWW.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was 1998. And it was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Really? The internet? Email? Huh?
Yeah.
And then I went to college, graduated college in 2005-ish. And, by about 2005, like, the internet was, like, rolling.
Mm-hmm.
As the internet began to roll, magazines began to lose their relevance for mainstream distribution of information.
Yeah.
I would say probably 2013-ish would have been like, into this day, I mean, by 2013, like, the internet had changed the world so much so that it would never go back to what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, by then, most magazines were, like, the fluff of the magazine world was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the fringe magazines that weren't that great, that didn't have, that weren't going to make it, had already died.
Yeah.
By 2013, the magazines that were going to make it pretty much were still there, because there's always, what we've found is there's always this percentage of people that want to get a print magazine, that want to have something shipped to their door, that want to have something that they can hold, that want to have something that's not digital, that they're looking at, that's burning holes in their brain, And so here we are in 2020, and the magazine's still going strong.
Yeah.
We've got, this is what amazed people, is we've pretty much had the same number of subscribers since like the very beginning until 2020.
Yeah.
Like, our numbers have remained relatively stable. And that's amazing to me.
Yeah.
Because people sometimes hear that I have a magazine and they're like, oh man, that's a tough business. I don't know. It's been it's worked for us.
Yeah.
And it's been a good way to disseminate information, and people are still, and I'm revealing all my cards here, people are still willing to pay for a print magazine.
Yeah.
They're not willing to pay for a subscription to our YouTube channel. You think
That's
about
true.
it.
That's true.
Like if we started selling subscriptions to our YouTube channel, like,
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think.
I mean, we do have digital subscriptions, like, through Maxter, but
Right.
but that's just to the actual, like, print, so you can have it on your phone and stuff.
Yeah.
Like the same thing that you would get in your hand, you could have it on your phone.
Yeah, exactly. But I say all that, I'm describing Bear Hunting Magazine just because we've never really like officially talked about it. But Bear Hunting Magazine is usually like a 76-page full color magazine, columns, and it's all going to be the same. I started off talking about Meateater, so but I just wanted to say that Bear Hunting Magazine is going to persist in its current form and even be better. Kolby's been writing some for us, been doing some. We almost always have we always have a recipe. Yeah, a big recipe with like photo essay recipe, legendary bear hound columns, all kind of stuff. Meateater. I work for Meateater. Yep. So what I'm going to be doing for Meateater, and the one thing that is changing is at some point in the future, that's as vague as I'll be, is that I'm going to be doing a podcast for Meateater. But the good news is that the people that listen to this podcast
keep getting it.
Won't have to do anything different. Like if you're subscribed to this podcast, just one day you're going to wake up and it's going to be different. Yeah. And it's going to be awesome. Yeah. That's pretty much all that I'll say about it. Yeah. But the Meateater platform of podcasts Meateater has Steve Rinella's Meateater podcast.
Yep.
Which is the biggest podcast in hunting by far. There's Cal's Weekly Review.
Yeah.
Which is always a top 5, if not top 2 or 3 podcasts in the hunting world. Mark Kenyon's Wired to Hunt, which is always in the top. I've seen it number 2. I've seen it number 5. Mark Kenyon's podcast is a Meateater podcast. Ben O'Brien's Hunting Collective is always a top tier podcast.
Yep. And then Remy
Warren's Cutting the Distance is all basically Meateater kind of like dominates the podcast world, which is pretty cool because guess what, boys? Our podcast is going to be with those guys, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, so more of your friends you'll be able to talk to about the podcast you listen to.
Because maybe they'll listen to it too.
Listen to it too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, there's going to be some changes. Going to be some changes in content. Like it's going to be totally different.
Yeah.
So, man, all
exciting.
Anybody that would be listening to this right now would kind of be like our core guys that came in when we are as we are.
Yeah.
So, man, you can help us just keep listening, keep following, and I don't know when the moment is going to be because we're working hard kind of behind the scenes on a bunch of stuff right now.
Yeah.
But it's cool. But what you can see that I am doing for Meateater is I'm writing some articles for them, and we're doing some video work for them.
Yep.
There's a cool video up right now on shock pouching a deer, which James Lawrence, my old mountain man buddy, his grandmother taught him how to carry out a deer on his back.
Cool grandma,
yeah. And so like we did a video on that's come out. That's on the Meateater website. It's on Meateater Facebook and Instagram and stuff. And I'm doing some writing for them. Wrote an article about how not to be a public land knucklehead. So there's some cool stuff coming out, and everybody can check it out. So that's all I got on that for now.
Yeah.
Hey, hunting season. Tell me, Kolby, you killed. You had a good season.
Yeah, I've had a good season so far. I got that bear at the opening weekend of bear season, archery season, and then I end up getting a doe with my bow, and then I got 2 bucks with my muzzleloader. Yeah. So
tell us about the bucks, like kind of like
bucks.
It was some family land down in Southwest Arkansas.
Yeah, some private land that a cousin of mine owns, and so. I end up getting a buck that morning in the same stand that I got the doe out of, and this year I decided, oh man, I didn't really do much last year. I need to put some meat in the freezer, and so I felt like I really needed to come out pretty strong, and so I was there, and there was a doe and a yearling, still had a few spots on it, just wandering around, and then the doe kind of winded me a little bit, or not winded me. She looked up and she saw something she didn't like, and she jumped back out of scene where I couldn't see her. And then I heard what I thought was her coming back in to where the yearling is, and then she turned out grew some antlers. So I look over, I'm like, wait, she looks different. That's a dude. So anyways, I was debating whether or not I was going to take him, just because it was like opening day of muzzleloader season. This is like way too easy. And then, but then I was like, well, I'll just take advantage of the situation.
Yeah.
Put some meat in the freezer. And so I was able to get him. He didn't run off too far. And then, got him. And then we've had some bucks that were really, we didn't really have many pictures of that buck, and he wasn't very big, but it just felt like a good one to take out. He had a few small kickers off of his base and stuff. It was just he was he was I think a 7 point. Yeah. And so then that evening, my dad and we had been seeing. We looked at our trail cameras the night before, and one particular trail camera, there was this good buck coming in pretty early in the afternoon. Like, he was consistently coming out around 3:00, 3:30. And so we were just like, man, that's a good buck. And my dad was like, that's my buck. So we knew where he was going to hunt. Then as we continued looking at the pictures, there was a bachelor group of bucks that had some good bucks in it coming in later in the evening. And so that deer that Dad was hunting was consistently there, and then another group would come in and join him. And just we would get pictures of, I think there was like 5 different bucks.
Really, still hanging together.
Still hanging together
season.
during muzzleloader season, which we were, it's like, what are they doing?
Huh.
Well, and so we decided that we weren't going to hunt there. We had checked the camera the night before. We decided that we shouldn't hunt there that morning because they might be there, might not. We didn't want to bump anything.
Right.
And so we didn't hunt there. Well, that afternoon after I shot my buck, my dad was just like, hey, why don't we just sit together over here? He's like, if that buck comes out, I'll shoot it. If anything else comes out, it's yours, And so, 3 o'clock, 3:30 rolls around. We don't see this buck. And then right around 5, I look up, and that buck is just standing there looking at us. We were sitting on the ground. And right as I look over and that buck's looking at us, my dad just he'd seen him before because he was in a better spot. And, just got his buck. So we go out there.
So he didn't say, there he is, Kolby.
No.
He just shot.
I just looked up, and as soon as I saw that, I was like, man, I saw the rack before I saw the buck, and then it just took off. And, or it didn't take off. I don't know why I said that. But in my mind, it was about to take off. And I just see him drop.
Yeah.
So Dad's all excited. We go and we drag it off. And then we just sit there, and it was probably an hour later, maybe a little longer than that. My dad sees deer moving behind us. And so I stand up and look, or I don't stand up. I just get kind of crouched and turn around, and I see a buck, and then I see a doe, and they kind of go out of sight. And then just not long later, I just see a rack coming up above the vegetation. It's one of those pictures that you always want to see, but I've never actually seen it play out that way. And he was just coming lateral to us, and I just see this rack, and then all of a sudden I see the head, and all of a sudden I see the deer. And so I was like, as soon as he's in the opening, I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to pull the trigger. This is a good buck.
And how long is this after your dad had shot?
It's probably an hour and a half.
Oh, really? So y'all just sat there?
Yeah, we just sat there. We went and drugged the buck away from where he was. And then,
okay, so y'all walked down there to the buck.
Yeah, checked it out, make sure everything was good, and then we decided to drag him away from where we were getting pictures of these other bucks too. And so, anyways, this buck was coming up, and the wind was perfect. I mean, The wind couldn't have been any better. And so, anyways, once this buck came up, it was like, that's a good buck. And so I shot him, and then he runs off into the brush, and then out of the corner of my eye, I see an even bigger buck running the opposite direction. So I didn't know there were multiple bucks there, but the way that the landscape was, I thought that the buck that came out was the one that I'd seen before.
Yeah.
But it turns out he was really, really he had really good mass.
What was it, an 8-point?
Yeah.
Nice 8-point.
Solid, typical 8-point.
Probably, he just had good mass. And
yeah, dark horns.
Yeah.
Really dark horns.
Biggest buck you've ever killed?
No.
That other one's bigger, huh?
Yeah, the one I have mounted at the house is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've never had a buck scored, but, I mean, everybody guesses in around 140s, which is good for, where I've been hunting.
Yeah.
The one this time, I think Dad actually tried to measure it, and I think it was like a little over 100, But
your first one. Okay, yeah.
This one this year, yeah, that dark horn one.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, I'd trade a lot for to have had some encounters like that because I've had a super tough season.
Yeah.
I haven't done any good. Probably whitetail hunted more this season than I have in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a interesting hunt yesterday I'll tell you about. I went on to some public land several hours from here that I keep a camera on, what I would call a primary scrape. So, there's, a lot of different – you go in the woods and the 20s of October, and you're going to see scrapes all over the place. Some scrapes are, perennial scrapes. Like they're going to come back year after year in the same spot. And these deer use these licking branches year round as scent communication posts for just distributing information.
Yeah.
And I know I've read that and whatnot, seen it. Well, I've seen it firsthand because I leave this camera up pretty much year round, and I have for the last 3 to 4 years. This year, I started to compare photos, and it kind of happened on accident. I can't say that I was that put together, but I saved photos from 2018, 2019, and then now I've got photos from 2020, and I started seeing very clear patterns in the way that these deer were using these scrapes. And this place is way back in. It's hard to get to. I would say there's very little hunting pressure in here. So these deer kind of act like deer act. And I know why there's little hunting pressure, because it's very difficult to kill a deer in there. The wind is tough. It's just there's many factors that make it tough. But that's cool for deer movement and whatnot on a camera. Now, I've never killed a deer back in there.
Yeah.
So I can't say that it's great hunting, because it's not been for me. But for getting pictures, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
No, here's a trend that I've seen is that these deer use the scrapes in the 20s of October. That's when you start seeing buck activity. Most of it is at night.
Okay.
About between November 1st and November 5th, the scrape activity completely dries up. Completely dries up. And what that would indicate is that the bucks are no longer worried about communicating from peeing in a scrape and putting their scent on a licking branch. They're actually chasing and breeding, tending with does. So the last 3 years, pretty much after November the 5th, no pictures on the scrape. Scrape's dead. Now, that does not mean that spot wouldn't be a good spot to hunt, though. It just means those deer aren't standing in that scrape. It's a travel area.
Yeah.
So, and that's why the scrape is there. I made a statement the other day. A lot of people are like, why would you hunt a scrape? It's always nighttime activity. That's true, but that can be true, and that's been proven in some research that a whole bunch of scraping is done at night. But that doesn't dismiss the fact that scrapes are in deer travel areas. Like a buck doesn't go put a scrape in some crummy spot that no does ever go to. A buck is putting, especially primary scrapes, in primary deer travel areas. So that deer may not be coming through that scrape during the daytime, but he might be 20 yards away, 30 yards away, just walking through that corridor, if you're following me.
Yeah.
But here's where I began to correlate this information that kind of after 3 years, and I don't have the information from 2017, but 3 solid years of data, is that after about, and it varies each year between the 1st of November to November 5th, the scrape shuts down. The scrape reactivates from November the 12th all the way through the 20s of November, peaking around November the 15th with scrape activity, except the second round of scrape activity, Kolby, is not at night, but is during the day. And see, I would have thought that was outlier information. The first year in 2018, I got a picture of a big buck that I was after, standing in that scrape on November 17th at 11 o'clock in the day. And I was like, I'll be darned. There he was, kind of outlier. It's well, yeah, I mean, they're going to visit the scrape sometime. That was just outlier data. Well, I remember that year I got a flurry of bucks coming into that scrape in the daytime in the middle teens of November. Okay. And again, all this stuff, you can read about it in a magazine because magazines are important.
Yeah.
But it's almost like when you see it in the field yourself, it begins to become like real functional data that you can use. That's not just abstract, somebody telling you that, bucks work scrapes in late October and then they work them again after the peak breeding period. Like something inside of my brain clicked yesterday when I went and checked this camera. And the way it works, it's way back in there, and I don't try to be to this stand before daylight. It's just almost not possible for me, considering the drive to get there and the walk back into this place. So what I usually do, try to get to where I park by daylight, and then I hunt my way back in there. And by hunt my way yesterday, what that meant for me is I rattled on 3 different occasions on the way back in. And it took me 2.5 hours to get back in there. And it's not that far back in there, but that's just how long I hunted. Like I walked and I would come to a good place that I felt like had the audio conditions, the sound conditions to carry sound good, like the sound would drop off into this holler and into this holler and go up the side of the mountain. And so I would rattle. Had a pair of synthetic rattling horns, which I'm making a video for Meateater about later, you'll see. So I'd rattle, and I might sit there for 15 minutes, and then I would kind of slip hunt. And anyway, got back to where I wanted to be at 9 o'clock in the morning, checked my camera. I've got an iPhone, and I've got an Apple SD card reader, little pocket thing. Yeah. That I just plug in, can check the pictures, and
it's a good idea to buy the genuine Apple one for that.
No doubt.
I've got another one, and I need to get the genuine one like you got.
The other ones you have to download an app.
Yeah.
It's junk.
And it's slow.
Oh, it's junk. Yeah. Get the. I don't know if they make one for Android. I don't know, but
that's a tech tip.
Yeah, tech tip. Get the Apple device if you have an Apple. So, I checked the camera, and then I already knew I was going to hunt. Like, I wasn't going to, look at pictures and then decide to hunt. So, I just checked the camera and climbed up the tree in my saddle, got in the saddle at 9 o'clock. Pulled out the phone. I didn't want to check the card while I was on the ground. I wanted to check it while I was in the tree. I knew I was going to hunt there. The pictures weren't going to dictate it, but I knew there would be pictures on it.
Yeah.
Well, Kolby, this third year of data just totally aligned. Like, the bucks use the scrape in the 20s of October, for sure.
Yeah.
In the daytime, some, but not a lot. They quit using the scrape on November the 2nd.
Okay.
They started using the scrape again on November the 10th.
Okay.
The day I hunted was November the 17th. So from the 10th to the 17th, there was a mature buck on that scrape during shooting hours 5 of 7 days. That's pretty incredible data.
Yeah.
5 of 7 days. From the 10th to the 17th. Actually, it wasn't. I didn't count the day I was there because from the 10th to the 16th, 6 days.
Yeah.
5 days. There was a mature buck, and there were 3 mature bucks using it.
Yeah, which is crazy for the
where it's at low
of,
density. Yeah, it's national forest. I mean, it's just like low density, tough hunting.
Yeah.
So 3 mature bucks, nothing major. I mean, if any of those bucks had been like right around here where I hunt, like we've got some pretty good deer up here in Northwest Arkansas. Like I've got a couple of deer that I think are maybe, they're pretty good. These deer wouldn't score good. They were just mature by their body characteristics and by the years I've been getting pictures of them. Like I've got 3 years of data, and I recognize these deer from 3 years ago, and now they're 4.5 to 5.5 year old deer.
Yeah.
That wouldn't score good. I mean, if you saw the picture of this guy, if I killed that buck and you saw my picture, you'd be like, oh, yeah, Clay killed a decent buck. But to me, that buck would mean like the world.
Yeah.
Because where he came from. Place is everything.
Yeah.
Inside of hunting, place is so significant. And by place, I mean geographic location that a human is connected to by many, many, many factors. He's connected to it culturally by, my dad hunted there. You're connected to it by just your history with that place. You've hunted there for so long. You're connected to the land, connected to the place. You place is everything.
Yeah.
Like that's why a deer on a high fence ranch doesn't mean as much. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like if you went and bought a deer hunt on a high fence ranch, it's like, what does that place mean to you as a hunter?
Yeah.
Not much.
Yeah.
And that's why you can go to a place and maybe not have great deer, but it be real significant. And that hunt could be translated into any species. They're just places that are significant. And I'm kind of intrigued by this idea of place and hunting because nobody's coming to Arkansas to hunt trophy deer. I would rather kill a deer back in where I'm talking about, as I would trade every deer I've killed in Canada for a big one back over there. People have heard me say that, and they think I'm crazy. Really, I killed a 160-inch deer in Manitoba, Canada last year that I didn't even mount. I got it on a Euro mounted it, and that deer is valuable to me.
Yeah,
it's valuable because I've now gone to Manitoba several times. I do feel connected to that place through the people that I know there. The guy we hunt with has become like a friend now. Like there's some, I feel like I'm starting to kind of like set my roots there. So there's value in that.
Yeah.
But place and hunting is almost always connected back to human relationship. I find that interesting.
Yeah.
And analyze that, like somebody listening to this. Think about that. Like the places that you love to hunt. Why do you love to hunt there? Is it just because it's good hunting? And I, as much as anybody, want to kill stuff when I hunt. I don't just go on nostalgic hunts and love like eating tags. No, I want to kill stuff.
Yeah.
But I bet money, if you think about the places that you love to hunt, that love that is connected to success you've had there, but it's also connected to people. And I know some of the places I love to hunt are always connected to people.
Yeah, I know the place that I shot deer this year. I mean, it has a lot of memories. Like my dad and I both killed our first muzzleloader bucks the same morning there.
Yeah.
And so realizing that there's a connection to just events like that and memories. Sitting down with him hunting deer together. It's like, how often were we going to do that? And so it's like after he shot that first buck, I knew it's like whatever walks out, I'm going to shoot it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because it's like punching that memory.
Yeah.
And so for me this year, it was like, everything that I got this year. Well, the bear, I was surrounded by people, and then with the deer, it was less people. It was just building stuff with my dad. Yeah. And so, but those same memories have been built inside of like public land areas too, or on the river or whatever. And so I find that a lot of my value is assigned to like places I've been with, like on a hunt with dad or someone else. So like, even though I'm living in Northwest Arkansas right now, I don't have like a huge drive to find a place to hunt around here because I'm not connected to it yet. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got connections down there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so getting back to my hunt, I got in the stand at 9:00, and it was a very exciting feeling to check that camera. And there had been a big, nice shooter buck there the day before, the 16th of November at 2 p.m. And what's interesting, again, is the trend is these mid-November scrape activity is during the day. Yeah. Which is better than the late October scrape activity. That's a trend for this spot. I can't say that would, I've not noticed that trend other places, but like I don't get a lot of nighttime scrape activity there during mid-November. It's always this midday stuff. Almost all of it midday, not even late in the morning, late in the evening. Some of that could be lunar phase or whatnot, but there's a trend from 2018, 2019, 2020. So I'm hoping to be able to get back in there sometime just in the next few days. We'll see if I can. I've already spent so much of my hunting right here in Northwest Arkansas and don't have anything to show for it other than one encounter with a really nice deer. Actually, two really good encounters with deer with my bow, and I just wasn't able to kill the deer. But I'm going to use that intel in the future Like, I feel this is the kind of place it's hard for me to go scout. Like, I don't just like go in there and scout and go, well, it's not very good hunting. It's the kind of place that you make up your mind you're going to go hunt, and you just go hunt it no matter what. Like, you're not just going to go visit that spot very easily. Or me being a couple hours away from it at least. Mm-hmm. If I lived down there, maybe it'd be different. But like next year, I'm going to keep that camera up there, and I'm just going to plan on hunting that spot November 13th, 14th, 15th.
Yeah.
And if anything is like the trend of the last 3 years, there's most likely going to be buck activity in there. And also, that trend is significant and substantial because all 3 of those years were very different with mass crop, with weather, with everything.
Yeah.
But that scrape activity remained the same. What that tells me is that, when these deer, okay, let me go back. The thing that remains constant, and that is almost unchanging, is the peak breeding period of any given time, because that is biology and evolution at its finest state. And I want to talk about that word evolution here in a minute. I'll kind of qualify that statement. But like peak fawn survival is what dictates conception. And so by this analysis that I have, clearly bucks are breeding does from about November the 5th to about November the 12th. And research backs that in Arkansas as for at least the highland regions, the mountain regions, being peak breeding dates.
Yeah.
Now, down in areas, and this is all super interesting, down in areas influenced by the flooding of the Mississippi River, peak breeding dates are much later. And do you know why? Have you ever heard me?
I haven't heard you break it down, but no. I would think it's because of rainfall.
Well, it's because of seasonal spring flooding.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Like, so gestation period of a doe, I think, is 202 days. So in the mountains and highland, the highland areas of Arkansas, Ouachita, Ozark Mountains, average doe, let's say she's getting bred on November the 8th. Well, 202 days from that is going to end up being somewhere around June the 1st. I haven't done the math in my head in a couple of years, but we start seeing fawns about, any given time from a week after to a week before June the 1st. And the whitetail breeding period is a gradient scale. Like, some does will come in and get bred in late October. Like, that for sure happens, because I have seen fawns on the ground in like early to mid-May in Arkansas, which you do the math backwards and it's like, holy smokes. That doe was bred early. Most of them are dropping in June, and my math may be wrong. I wasn't planning on talking about this.
Yeah,
it may be later in June, that 202 days from like November the 8th or something. But my scrape activity shows that those bucks are with does. They're not worried about scrapes. By about November the 12th, most of those does are bred. These bucks are back to working scrapes, and that scrape is the place where they're communicating about, does are communicating if they're in estrus, bucks are communicating. So anyway, I'm going to take this intel and use it in years to come, because that is something that is consistent, is that breeding date. Like, weather could change, mass crop could change, they could clear cut that place, like everything could change, but that peak breeding date isn't going to change. And I think sometimes as hunters, we get lost in the details of the moment. I do, like of weather, of looking for deer sign, and or looking at our app that tells us if it's a good day to deer hunt or not. I got one buddy who will remain unnamed who's like, DeerCast says it's going to be a good day to hunt. You think it's going to be good? And I'll be like, I don't really care what DeerCast says. If you can go hunting today, go hunting. Yeah. Like, it's November the 9th. So, there's some things that just remain the same, which is going to be that peak breeding time. You need to be in the woods. And by the time this podcast comes out, some of that'll be over, and we'll kind of be towards the post rut here. Doggone it, Kolby! I was going to talk about the Mississippi River, and I didn't.
Mississippi River, the mighty Mississippi.
Well, I was going to talk about why it's the reason the rut is later in Mississippi. Well, in areas influenced by the Mississippi River and the delta regions of the South, is because of seasonal flooding in the spring. So if does are dropping fawns in mid-May, which is like peak rain season, all those bottomlands flood.
Yeah.
So their rut is later. It's a month later. I mean, like the peak rut for my buddies down in southeast Arkansas is like mid-December.
Really?
Early to mid-December. Oh, peak rut. Like right now, it's like not even much going on down there with the rut.
Yeah.
Mid-December, bucks are chasing, bucks are breeding. It's crazy. And those fawns are getting an extra month for the water to recede, because and that all is dictated by, if you think about the process, the biological process, there were does that were bred on November the 5th down there in the lowland river country, and they had fawns that drowned.
Yeah.
So that doe's genes, her DNA that dictated when she came into estrus, which would be genetic and hereditary. Like there would be some that would have, the DNA structure. Everything that our body does is dictated by DNA. DNA is like this code that's pre-coded to do certain stuff.
Yeah.
For you, your red hair.
Yeah.
Blazing red hair.
Super recessive.
That you haven't combed in weeks.
I don't know if a comb will go through it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but you think about it makes perfect sense that so a doe that would have the DNA to come into estrus early, whatever triggered that, her genes would not be passed on. The doe that had the hereditary inclination to come into estrus later, she would be rewarded because her fawn would survive, her genes would survive. So you do that for 10,000 years or 20,000 years, and all of a sudden all your does down in the Mississippi River bottoms come into estrus in mid-December.
Yeah.
Pretty fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Up here it's not as critical when they come in, but it's still a relatively tight period of time. So anyway, that's my story. So I sat there and didn't see the buck.
Yeah.
I'm telling you a hunting story and like weaving in and out of like all this stuff.
Yeah.
I sat there all day yesterday, got in the stand at 9:00, and I climbed out of the stand at basically sunset, which would be 30 minutes before you could stop shooting, because I wanted to be able to hunt my way out of there for at least some period of time before it got dark. I've had a fair bit of, not success because I've never killed a buck like this, but I could have killed deer multiple times late in the evening coming out of there, grunting, moving slow, kind of slip hunting out of there.
Yeah.
And multiple times I've had deer encounters that if it had been a buck, I could have killed it. So I got out of the stand basically at 5:00. Like 5:08, I got out of the stand. Legal shooting light lasted till like 5:38 for just to give you the real details there, down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
And didn't see a buck. I saw one doe at 12:25. I turned around directly behind me and I watched a doe bed down. 60, 70 yards away. Watched her she stayed on the ground for probably 10 minutes and got up and walked off. But no buck ever came in.
Yeah.
Mo Shepherd thinks they smelled me, which he's probably right.
Yeah.
Probably they smelled me and I never saw them. The wind up on this place is squirrely as it can be.
Yeah.
Like if you check, wind indications on a weather app mean nothing up there. Yeah. Nothing. Like if it says winds out of the north, it does not matter. The wind will be swirling in there, or it will pick its own direction. Like yesterday, the wind blew out of the east about 70% of the time. And I didn't even look at what it predicted, but they never predict an east wind down there.
Yeah.
Like we're very rare. An east wind is like
unheard of.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
almost all of our wind is out of the north, south, or west.
Mm-hmm.
In the combination of those, rarely out of the east.
Mm-hmm.
It blew out of the east almost all day.
Okay.
Which was favorable for me.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's my story, man. That's my story.
Yeah.
We're not gonna belabor this podcast.
Yeah.
I don't want to say this because but we're working on so much stuff for the new version of this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a bunch of stuff that I'm kind of holding back, Kolby.
Yeah.
Because we had a string of podcasts there that were like awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had some awesome ones lately, but like we were traveling, we were going out of our way to get some great guests. I mean, we had Ted Nugent, we had Steve Rennell and Giannis Patelis. We had we were traveling and doing some biology podcast with Sarah Lida and Laura Conley, and we got a whole bunch of great stuff that we just can't
release yet.
Yeah. And so right now we're we just
sticking local.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to talk about this book right here, Against the Grain, but I'm not, Kolby. I just don't think we can get into it.
Yeah.
I tell you what, if there's one thing that I would encourage people to do, it's read. You can. We were going to do like a book review on a couple of these books I'm reading. Mm-hmm. I am not a voracious reader either. Like, I don't want people to hear me talk about reading books and think that because some people are. Mm-hmm. Some people just like can pick up that book and read it like in a weekend.
Yeah. That
is not me.
Yeah.
I got to pack on these books for long periods of time.
With pen in hand. Yes.
And that's what I do, and I love it. I love it. I don't know. We got to keep. I think as adults, and most people that listen to this podcast would be an adult. This idea that you stop learning once you're out of school or out of college or something, it's crazy. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're designed to continue to learn and grow as people for our entire lives. Yeah. We really are. And so this idea that we quit like academic learning once we get out of school or something is, I don't know. I don't think it's very healthy.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to have a different appetite, but I've had to develop a discipline inside of me to read books and make time for it. Mm. But it's just something I've prioritized over the last 20 years. And man, there are people that I'm not well read. I promise you I'm not. But I have consistently read for 20 years, you know, just stuff that's interesting to me.
Yeah.
And it's valuable. And I'm only talking about this because we were going to talk about this book, Against the Grain.
Yeah.
I want to.
It's
so
good
much
stuff.
So much. We'll have to do it on
another podcast.
Yeah. So I'm working for Meateater. It's not Changing Bear Hunting Magazine.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to kill a buck. Kolby just went out in all his red-haired glory and killed 2 bucks on the same day, just easy peasy. I don't know, man. I guess he's got a silver spoon in his mouth when it comes to deer hunting.
Yeah. It was just a year it needed to be easy. I didn't need to be spending a lot of time out there, I guess. I still want to go see if I can get another doe or 2.
Yeah.
And I might hunt Texas a little bit at my parents' house.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, yeah, we're about to start working on the January, February issue of Bear Hunting Magazine.
It's right around the corner.
Right around the corner.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, well, man, keep the wild places wild because that's where the bears live.
Yep.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meateater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meateater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meateater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.